Okay, we have a call to order for the Bartlett Economic Development Commission meeting for February 13th, 2017. May we have a call to order?
Okay, Jerry Cabasso,
Here.
Celia Green, Nan Matha,
Yes.
Tracy Smedillo,
Yes.
Donna Weir, Robert Perry,
Here.
Ann Gudenkauf.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, we have a quorum. Continue on to the next agenda item, which would be approval of the January 9th, 2017 meeting minutes. Do we have any discussion on the previous meeting's minutes? Do we have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes from January 9th, 2017 as presented.
I second.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
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 Motion carries. Fourth agenda on the item would be a Chamber of Commerce update.
I think we're going to wait till next time because they have some items, so it's being postponed.
That's correct. We're just going to postpone this item possibly for next month or whenever the next meeting is.
Can we have a motion to amend the agenda as presented?
You can do that.
Yeah.
So moved.
Second to amend it. Ann?
I'll second.
Okay.
Move on to the next item.
Well,
We would need
just
to
vote on
amending
the agenda to remove that chamber item.
Mr. Chair, do you want to call the vote? Will you please call a vote to amend the agenda?
I'm not hearing too good tonight. You want to do it? Call those. My ears are plugged up. I'm not hearing real.
Just since we're going to hold off on the chamber item, we're going to amend the agenda to remove that and put it on next meeting. And Tracy moved and Nan seconded it. So we just need a vote to amend the agenda to remove that item.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay, next agenda item would be first quarter 2017 marketing.
Thank you, Jerry. What this is, the completed but not forgotten marketing plan, the EDC. I was looking at this marketing plan that the EDC put together, and then later on, last spring, the village board approved it. And just for the recollection of those of you who participated in it, we spent, I think it was 5 consecutive meetings discussing the economic development marketing plan from about July of 2015 through December of 2015. And ultimately, if you recall, we created essentially a site-by-site economic development marketing plan. And for Nan's benefit, I provided a copy of this report. I think it was approved by the village board, I'm going to say last May or June. So what this is a follow-up with that, not just to say we approved a marketing plan and we're going to revisit it again, in 2020 to see if we've made any progress in a period of 5 years. So this is an update on it about a year, 14 months after the EDC last saw it. So it was a very comprehensive and detailed plan, if you recall. So I'm just going to go over some of the highlights of what is going on with it and what the staff is doing with it here in the first quarter of 2017. So that's basically the background of it. For advertising, the village is known for our industrial strength with Brewster Creek Business Park and now with Blue Heron Business Park. And staff has continued print advertising in 2 Chicago area trade publications and just recently signed another contract with Chicago Industrial Properties where we advertise in every issue. There's another industrial publication widely read and circulated among Chicago area industrial real estate people, kind of a one-woman publication called Benuzzi's Industrial Guide. It's a smaller publication than Chicago Industrial Properties, but we've continued advertising in both of them throughout the years. And you don't need to flip to it now, but one of the attachments that I have in there is the current ad that we use. It goes along with our food cluster branding. We've used it now for about 2 years. We're Hungry for Your Business ad, where we highlight some of the food companies. So that's proven to be fairly effective. And I know I've been asked by the EDC several times over the years for kind of a direct cost-benefit analysis of that, which would be hard to pinpoint. I would say that we generate perhaps 1 inquiry a month based on the print advertising, sometimes 2. But I would argue that because some of those have been very valuable prospects, like leasing an empty 200,000 square foot building or bringing in some industrial condominium users, it's money well spent. The other half of it, and now this goes back quite a few years to the EDC, where we used to talk about branding quite a bit and come up with the Never Far Away branding logo. But, that's also something where it contributes to the branding of our industrial area. Even when I approach somebody or call an industrial person, typically they'll say, oh yeah, I've heard of Brewster Creek Business Park. Sometimes they've just seen a listing there when they're working for a client, and in other cases they've seen our advertising because we've been doing it year after year. So that's some of the advertising. That's not all of our advertising. Flipping on to page 2 of this memo, I also want to remind you that the Brewster Creek Business Park ads are paid for out of Brewster Creek specific TIF funds. Brewster Creek is its own self-contained TIF district, and every year I help prepare the TIF budget, and Jim's ultimately responsible for submitting the TIF budget, and we always include some advertising and marketing expenses with that. So that doesn't come out of the general fund, that comes out of TIF. I was going to say not exactly an advertisement, but I hope you've had a chance to flip through the entire packet. We generated some good press recently with an article in the Elgin Courier where they were noticing the development happening out there in Blue Heron. And you can see that besides calling me and having me talk about how great it is, I pointed them out to call the businesses that have located there. And I think 2 out of the 3 businesses were featured in the article. I think the third one just maybe didn't get back to the reporter in time. But there's some nice information there with Elgin Beverage, Traffic Control and Protection, and then Traffic Services, Inc. So as Jim and I have mentioned to you a few times, we have basically the 2 biggest traffic control companies in the state over there on the west side of the town. They're competitors, but between the 2 of them, they supply a bulk of the traffic signs you'll see in the Chicago area. Not to leave out our retail and restaurant businesses. Later on in your packet, too, there's a Valentine's Day ad. Valentine's Day here is tomorrow, meaning that I better quickly find out, make sure I get the right things for my wife by tomorrow. But in the meantime, I put an ad in all Examiner publications. So when I say all Examiner publications, there's 6, and I think they consider Wayne a separate one as well. So it goes to Carroll Stream and Streamwood, Hanover Park, Bartlett, and Wayne. And I don't know if I'm forgetting one, but it goes throughout the Examiner publications. Last Wednesday, it was in all 6 of them. And last but certainly not least, and something that we can talk about here tonight if you wish, or just let us go with what we did last year. We started doing Comcast cable ads, you recall, last year, and Jim and I always try to figure out how to show them here at the meetings and have you view them. And last year, what we did, part of the marketing plan was to continue promoting current businesses and retailers. And so to refresh your memories, last year we did 3 different cable ad campaigns. In about March, we did a Dining in Bartlett ad that was shown many times. I can't recall exactly, but that was maybe in the 2,000 range of how many times we showed it. The most expensive one you recall was we actually showed ads during the Olympic telecasts. When you watch TV, I'm sure you noticed that in most breaks, there's 4 or 5 national type ads, and then the last one is a local car dealership or restaurant or something like that. So we bought up some of the local ads that actually aired during the Olympic telecasts. And that one also got a lot of good response. And that one was promoting mostly Heritage Days and the Kickstand Classic. We did a big push towards the end to sign up get more people to sign up for Kickstand Classic. And then last, again, but not least, was we did about 3 weeks of advertising this leading up to Small Business Saturday. So we did an advertisement campaign in November. That's the last one we've run. And I've been contacted again by our Comcast ad representative. Of course, they like it when their clients continue purchasing ads. And unless somebody has an idea of another type of campaign maybe that we should look, or I don't know if we would be able to do 4 rather than 3. That would take a lot of staff time, of course, to do 4 ad campaigns. But my thinking is really to continue it again, the same type of thing for this year, to do a dining ad sometime in the spring, another ad publicizing the Heritage Days and Kickstand Classic, and trying to drive visitors to the downtown Bartlett events. And then really the businesses featured in Small Business Saturday just absolutely loved that ad. And had some success, and even cited that they had some success, people saying that they saw those ads and they didn't know there was a bookstore in town, or they didn't know there was a bike shop or something. So get a little ahead of myself for new business, but we've had some restaurants that have changed since last year. Tipsy Monkey closed recently. Smoke and Barbecue Pit closed recently. A new restaurant just opened about a week ago called Flappy's. So there are some different restaurants to promote this year. So anyway, that's enough about the advertising, but it's my thought to continue that advertising campaign on cable.
Tony, before you go on with this report, can we just circle back to a couple of things real quick? I've got just a few questions.
Sure.
Starting with the advertising specifically for the industrial parks, are those the format that the publications are providing? Are those both print and electronic?
These ones are in print. However, the Chicago Industrial Properties has an electronic component. And for the first time, I've been purchasing ads with them for 12 years now at Bartlett. But for the first year, they included 6 e-blasts in the contract for this year. Now, I kind of skipped over it, but we do a Brewster Creek open house. And the last time I did the e-blasts through Chicago Industrial Properties were for the open house. So we are entitled, and here we are in middle of February. We have 6 e-blasts coming to us from the Chicago Industrial Properties publication. The Newsies doesn't do that, and they're she won't listen to this, but they're low-priced ads. We get like a half page or a whole page for $250, and that one has a smaller circulation, maybe 5,000. Chicago Industrial Properties is big. I say that every month. Anybody in industrial real estate in Chicago subscribes to that and reads it. So that has circulation more like 50,000.
That's good, because I was
So-
going to ask you about, specifically about the circulation analysis of these three, and whether or not there was any redundancies in their reach.
Well, which would be the third one?
Don't you have CIP? Oh, that is. the
CIP,
same thing.
sorry, that's just
Pardon
what
me,
we call
that's,
Chicago.
okay.
There is redundancy in them, yes.
So the two, yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a few people who would subscribe to both, but Chicago Industrial Properties, like I said, that's kind of that's like saying the Chicago Tribune or something for industrial real estate.
So besides the 6 e-blasts, though, I mean, do they actually have an electronic presence similar to like a website where they would actually list the properties that are available in the village?
They don't, you can do that with them through advertising, but that's not the venue that industrial real estate people would go to for listings.
Really?
Yeah. No, they would go to the,
They wouldn't access any availability on their tablet or?
oh, that's available on tablet. What I'm saying is if a broker was looking for 200,000 square feet of industrial space, they wouldn't go to Chicago Industrial Properties publication. They might see an ad in it. There's two things people use, is CoStar and LoopNet. Those are the two. And then if it's Bartlett specific, or they're looking in Bartlett, let's say they're looking in Bartlett, Streamwood, and Hanover Park, and Carroll Stream, they'll go to of course, just like looking for a house, they can run it through those search engines, but they also would typically contact the village. I mean, I got a call like that this morning.
Yeah, I
So
guess.
people, that's the way. The magazine is it's a trade publication.
Sure.
So maybe only a tiny, slight number of industrial properties on the market would be listed. It's more, I can bring in a copy for you next month. Jim and I both get it.
So it's primarily our ad. We're not actually listing the availability of the
Right.
properties.
Yeah, that's an ad. Yeah, that's purely an ad.
And
We
is
highlight
it,
a specific building in the current ad.
and so when you indicated that we were getting about one inquiry a month for the advertising, is that for both publications? Is that
For
cumulative?
Chicago Industrial Properties, usually.
Okay.
People don't typically call and say, I saw it in an ad, but once in a while, they do. Part of our marketing plan was to inquire more about the source of it, but typically it's through the real estate search engines.
So the one inquiry, they're actually stating, yeah, we saw you in the publication.
They occasionally will say that,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe 10 to 15 times per year.
And, and so for a half or a whole page ad in Benuzzi's, is the, I guess, I'm just trying to understand, I mean, is there a better way for us to really start to hit these brokers a little more frequently rather than paying money for ads? I mean, if it's,
Well, this goes back to what we always talk about, the different ways of marketing properties. There's networking with brokers at trade shows. There's only a few industrial trade shows in the Chicago market per year. I have one in early April, but there's not a lot. There really aren't very many. We've been very successful with industrial, with networking and marketing with brokers. And it's more been because, I'm going to say organically, because of the growth of the business park, maybe more so than the advertising. The advertising itself isn't a panacea, it's just a
Sure,
component of
absolutely.
the marketing plan.
what do we spend a year on advertising for these two publications? Pardon me,
Let's see,
my mic
the
is
quick
like
math, give me a second. Yeah, it's only about $250 to $300 a month for Benuzzi's, and the Chicago Industrial Properties is plus or minus $700 per ad, but it's only 6 months. It comes out every other month, so $4,000 or so, maybe $5,000 in advertising. But I mean, trade shows cost money to attend. We do periodic e-blasts, and more. It's networking with the active brokers in the
Sure.
area.
I think the benefit of advertising in both of them, especially even Benuzzi's industrial guide, is that it reaches the brokers who eventually then market. They call us up and ask us about sites. Like today, the Benuzzi's came out today, and we did a full page ad. And as Tony said, I think he's got it in here. We advertised one of our buildings, which is, and I don't know, the Exeter Property Group. that's listed here, the 421, and that's being built by Meridian, which is a big industrial builder. They also had a full-page ad in Benuzzi's advertising the Exeter, so it got kind of a dual bang for your buck. And when you see the contributors to those articles are usually the big industrial brokers in the Chicago area.
Okay.
So you kind of get that double impact. So the brokers are, it looks like a small little newspaper, but it's read by a lot of the major brokers and the ones who do work out here.
Right.
And you'll see you see Meridian all over. You see Grubb, Knight, Newman, Mark, those guys, they're all industrial. CBRE, they're all in that Dolan and Murphy and Aurora. The brokers look at those, and then they'll contact us. It might not say a specific building, but they see Brewster Creek, Bartlett, they'll call, hey, you got a site. Tony talked to a guy today. You got a site for, I saw that you have this industrial park. Do you have a site for a 260 building or a 50,000? We're actually running out of sites. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a networking thing because there's not a lot of industrial brokers in the Chicago area. And they all read the same publications and they come to our open houses. So.
Excellent. Well, again, I think we're always interested in knowing what we can do to support you in your marketing efforts. And if there's a way to make sure that those funds are allocated in the most beneficial way.
Yeah. It would be nice if there were more industrial real estate trade shows in the Chicago market. They have them maybe 3 times a year, just in the morning in Rosemont, and we go to them. I go to them for the village, but it's one of those situations where you get about a 30-second, what I call the elevator pitch, where people start losing their interest in it if you don't tell them what they want to hear immediately. So that'll be like a basic question is like, what incentives do you give, and do you have a 250,000 square foot building right now? And, typically between these networking events, they'll be able to find the type of property that they're looking at. And, we'd have to talk about it all day, like the dynamics of how businesses end up in Brewster Creek Business Park, because there's all different reasons. But, a lot of it is that it's in DuPage County, that it's, there's available space. Like Jim said, there's not a lot of big land sites that are currently available out there because there's going to be more projects this year. So the person that I spoke with today, just using an example, was somewhat vague on the amount of space that they were looking for, but said the number 280,000 square feet. Well, we just happen to have another speculative building maybe going to be built, not for sure, 267,000. Which is a mirror image of another 267,000 that was just built, but halfway leased. So like I said, every business prospect has its own story. Mm-hmm. It's not one size fits all, but we've positioned ourselves well to be able to take advantage of some of those industrial opportunities. So like I said, it's been, I feel like we've been very successful marketing Brewster Creek Business Park. There could be more. When it comes to cable advertising, maybe that's one of the cable ads we should think about doing is just purely a Brewster Creek Business Park cable ad campaign sometime in the spring after one of the buildings is complete, and try to get it on. Remember I mentioned last year, they have so many psychographics when you meet with Comcast. They can, they call it a business package where you go on CNN and CNBC and Fox News and stuff instead of the Hallmark channel or the cooking channel or something. So we've always advertised across all the channels, but you can do an industrial ad and just try to put it on what you feel is a business-related channel, something to at least consider.
I think it was either last year or the year before, I think it was even the City of Broadview was advertising on Blackhawks radio, and ironically, I guess it was a very, very successful pitch. So I don't know if radio advertising, especially during those peak periods and during something as popular as a Hawks game, might even be something we would entertain, or at least do a cost analysis versus.
It's been done many times. Yeah, those advertising campaigns cost anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000. So when you talk about, you know, the bang for your buck, those are widely heard ads. But of course, after many of our elected officials heard some of those 780 ads, I met with 780 to talk about replicating that, and I did get the lowest quote that I got was over $30,000. So we decided to pass on that and just kind of do locally. But moving on to improving occupancy, we last month when we went through all the economic indicators reported that our vacancy rate is still at 14%, which is a 5% improvement since 2015. And I want to remind everybody that the vacancy in Stearns Crossing alone is 65,000 square feet. So that's a space where I put in my memo, it's a high priority to fill that space. We still are marketing the space. Just because it's not in the news all the time, you know, it's still a space that we're pitching. And what I did attach in your packet, people always ask me who owns it. And I always answer, well, that's the only shopping center in our town that's owned by what I call an institutional investor. It's not some local guy that we call on the phone who lives in the area. It's owned by a REIT that I looked up. I had never really looked them up before, but I see that they own over 4,200 properties, almost 100 million square feet, and a book value of $16 billion. So we don't necessarily work directly with the REIT when we're trying to fill that space. I have met with them before, but typically we're working with Jewel, or Albertsons we call them, the parent company of Jewel, and there is a broker from CBRE representing the space. So that's a space that we've been working hard to fill, and we hope that we're going to fill that this year. I hope I can sit here with Jim early next year and say it's filled and the vacancy rate's down to like 7 or 8% or under 10%. I don't want to sound negative, but there's always going to be future vacancies. There's always a few other businesses that are struggling, and you know, we haven't had a year go by where the same 300 businesses are in business at the beginning and the end of the year. So improving the vacancy rate is something that we're always striving to do, but particularly that site because it's such a big glaring hole on the most prominent corner in the community.
Before you continue, may I call a point of order? The Bartlett Chamber representative has left the meeting.
Right.
She is a part of the quorum. And we are no longer in quorum.
If I'm not mistaken, as long as you open the meeting with a quorum, you can continue it on. You just can't vote on any items that would come up for a vote. And these are really more informational items. And we knew that she had to leave, and we're trying to wrap it up by 7:30. But I don't think we can vote on anything, but we can continue the meeting. And I will make sure, I will check with our village attorney, but it's my understanding that as long as it was open with the quorum, that we can continue to move on, and as long as you're not voting on anything that requires a quorum vote.
Thanks, Jim.
We weren't anticipating on voting on anything tonight anyway.
No.
Mostly
This is
informational.
this is informational. Like I would consider it a one-year update on the marketing plan. Addressing development sites is part of the marketing plan, and I've included several sites where we're currently pursuing ground-up developments. And again, I listed out about 8 of them, and I'm not going to say, well, we're going to get development on all these sites within the next year or two, but there's a few of them where we are in contact with interested developers and hoping that something gets developed there in the next year, working hard towards it. Trade show participation, I kind of alluded to in an earlier mentioning how we go about marketing our business parks. This coming up is what I call trade show season, coming up in March. And so I listed, there's 2 retail trade shows next month that I'll be putting some vacant sites again in front of potential retailers, and also a couple of land sites. ICSC is the big one that's been around forever, that everybody who represents retailers is a member of, and there's one March 2nd in Oak Brook. I'm sorry, flip that. The Midwest Idea Exchange is at UIC on March 14th, and in Oak Brook is what a more of an upstart retail organization called Retail Live. There is some overlap in those, but I like that because then, just using one example, it let me get in front of the Jersey Mike's guys twice last year. And by getting in front of them over and over again, establishing a relationship and being able to pitch sites to them, not in every case, but in many cases has led to new businesses coming to town. And also, from a competitive standpoint, you have to do it. Because when you go there, there's the same 50 people I know from the same 50 towns at every show. And there's the bigger towns that are going to get the bulk of the new businesses, but the towns, that aren't Schaumburg or Naperville or Chicago or Aurora, have to get there too to compete and put sites in front of these guys. So it's what I talk about. I call trade show season. Last paragraph on page 3, I wanted to mention the people that I hit the hardest at these trade shows include, of course, grocers. To be honest, a lot of these grocers are kind of sick of me by now, but I keep going to their booths or looking at their name tags and trying to figure out who they are. Hotels, soft goods, and you might not think of this, but pet supply stores. There's a store called Pet Supplies Plus that I've been putting sites in front of for the last 3 or 4 years, and I, honest to God, hope someday I can tell you they're coming to town or somebody just like them. So, I'm sure a lot of you have attended trade shows for the different types of, positions that you've been in or organizations, and it's a lot of it's just networking. It's not exactly always shoving a potential site in front of somebody's face, but a lot of time just saying, hi, how you doing? I'm from Bartlett. Here's a little bit about my town. Can I get your card? Can I send you a site? And that's, sometimes some of the businesses that have come into town, I could tell you stories, but it's taken a long time.
Well, I have a question about that. And again, we can talk about the success of having Jersey Mike's, the AutoZone, and certainly the Dollar Tree,
Right.
All within steps of one another. So thinking about those and thinking that there are other businesses or industries that you've targeted, but we wound up with these 3 national chains. What criteria is it that they seek, and what criteria did they use to choose their sites, and how can we actually parlay that demographic information into the sales pitch that we have for prospects in the future?
Yeah, you answered the question. They looked at demographics.
Well, I understand that, but what kind of demographics specifically were they looking for, and would those even match perhaps some other industries, or be similar to other industries that would find us attractive?
I think the common thread, Tony, would probably be the traffic going by.
Yeah, the national.
They all have the same criteria regarding how much traffic is going by the location.
They like the traffic and they like the lack of competition. They don't want to be it's harder to sell the 30th pizza store to come into town than it would be to the first auto parts store. So I answered the question. It's demographics, and they each have their own.
All right, so we know that grocers are really not too interested in us right now, particularly when we have Albertsons still paying the rent on the Dominick's store.
Yeah, that site isn't.
And certainly hotels, we probably don't have again, we don't have the demographic or the traffic counts for those. But I'd just be very curious as to, what those specific demographics were, and again, how that data might be used to entice other industries to come in.
They're different by category and by individual retailers. If you talk to 10 grocers, they might have 10 different sets of demographics they look for. Hotel is easy. They look for daytime population and business clusters. The reason we don't have a big hotel in Bartlett is because they don't see the demand there from the business side.
Sure. Well, and that's my point. When you talk about staff continues pursuing grocers, hotels, soft goods, and pet supply stores, I think we could kind of not think too much about grocers and hotels right now, but if we've got 3 national chains that have found that particular area of Bartlett attractive, how can we use that data to sell a similar story to national chains, since they seem to have the propensity to hang around a little bit longer? And usually these are like franchisees, so you're going to have a franchisor that's very interested in making sure that these businesses succeed. Plus, they have the net behind them, too, to make sure they succeed.
Okay. Was there a question in there? I didn't.
Yeah, the question is, how do we use the information that they, as national chains, were...
It's the same as we've always done it. They have demographic criteria. We present our demographics. We can't change them. We can't make them up. And then if our demographics match, they're not always just picking purely by demographics. It might be something else altogether. It might be the cluster of businesses in the area. We might have great demographics for a car dealership, but we don't have an auto row, so they don't necessarily want to be there. Again, you just asked like the crux of the question of how to attract retail development. Well, it's based on a lot of factors, and demographics is one of them, and traffic's another, education, income, how many cars people own. I could go on all day.
Sure.
So it's different business by business.
Yeah, what I'm asking is how do we use that, though, and
we
target
get the
these specific
demographics.
national chains, because clearly if 3 of them have found us to be attractive enough to open up these stores within the last few years.
That's 3 out of 200 that I've put demographics in front of.
For national chains.
Why those and not, why one auto parts store and not another? You'd have to call and ask them.
Yeah, we talked to a hoteler last 2 weeks ago, and for a site, and we used these Esri, and it's a 1-3-5 mile ring, and you cite it for the Pacific area that the hotel was interested in. We sent out the demographics. There was a developer who has a contract on the land, and he called us back up because he wanted to do a hotel mixed with a banquet facility. And he called us back up and he said, hey, the hotel doesn't like your demographics. He's out of it. And so we, as Tony said, we provided the information that we get through these sources, which is it's different depending on where you're at in the village, because in the downtown it's a little different than down on 59. And as Robert said, that the traffic's involved in it, the counts and everything. But for some reason, the hotelier, once he found out who we had here, what our demographics, the guy called back and he said, I'm dropping my contract, I'm not coming in. The hotel backed out. And they make a decision internally, obviously, after they see the information we provide. And we were talking to him for quite a while up till that point. But when he looked at those numbers, whatever was in there that he didn't like or the hotel didn't like, they made their decision not to proceed.
Right. We presented that last month. Our daytime population of workers is only, it sounds good for us because it's growing. It's around 9,000. It's kind of pushing that 10,000 number. They're really looking for 2-3 times that much. Doesn't mean we're not going to keep targeting a hotel, because we do have 40,000 residents. And I truly believe there should be a hotel in town. I think it'll happen at some point, but we're just not necessarily at that point yet. And also some of the locations that they like happen to be in Cook County, and it's going to be hard to get anybody to build something of that magnitude. they'll be built in Cook County in the future, but maybe not right on the county line, that close to DuPage. So that's just one specific example. And that's my whole report on the marketing activities. I mean, we're continuing marketing vacant sites, advertising current businesses, and like I said, kind of looking at continuing our cable TV advertising as well. And industrial is a whole other ball game, and we're strong, very strong with that. And there are going to be possibly 3-4 new buildings this year in Brewster Creek Business Park. There's a few that are being built right now, and then others that we're seeking tenants for. Like I mentioned, there's the one we featured in there. I keep featuring that building because it's the biggest in the village. It's 421,000 square feet. We don't want that sitting empty for years. The developers certainly don't.
Okay, if we have no further comments on first quarter marketing, we'll move on to next to last agenda item, which is what's new, Tony?
The only real new business that we have is, as some of you probably have read or heard, that Valerie, our longtime administrator, has retired, and that the assistant village administrator, Paula Schumacher, was made acting village administrator. And she is now, today was her first day as the acting village administrator. So that's generally the new business, and we'll move on with Paula in the lead until something changes, but that's where we're at.
You said Paulette?
Paula Schumacher.
Right. Yeah.
Paula Schumacher?
The new acting village administrator.
Remember, she came here for all the marketing plan meetings that we were
Right.
working with her on that.
Have you worked with her?
Oh, yeah, Paula's been here for quite a few years.
Economic development?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like at least 20 years.
I think
Long time.
25 years, yeah.
Yeah, so,
So she's user-friendly?
I'm sorry?
yeah,
User-friendly?
yes, she's very good to work with. Yeah, she is the chamber's, she's always was our chamber liaison over the years. So she's very familiar with all the chamber members too. That's pretty much
She's
all.
broken in pretty well.
Yeah.
Yes.
She knows what's going on.
Okay.
That's all the new business.
If that concludes new business, our last item would be adjournment. You have a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.
She did.
Sure, thank you.